On the phone, we have one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. He took not one but two teams to Super Bowls. Dick Vermeil, how you doing, Coach?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I'm undefeated this year.
That's what every coach wants.
Yeah, you bet.
Maybe you could take over this Bears job here.
Oh, I'm too old, but I wish I was young enough to do it. I think you have a good coach there. I've known him for a while and respected what he's done. He's having troubles there right now, but all coaches go through problems from time to time.
Another coach wants to get back into coaching. He's older than you, Marv Levy. He mentioned to me last year.
Oh, really? Marvin, well, God bless him. He's a great coach already in the Hall of Fame. Not much more you can do.
I think he wants to be the oldest coach in NFL history.
Well, he would probably do it.
How did you end up getting into coaching?
Well, I loved high school football. I had a high school coach that sort of inspired me to start thinking about going to school, and because I wasn't doing that originally, and I got into playing. I went to junior college, caught up academically, and played a little football. I went to San Jose State and ended up playing there, and decided to be a high school football coach, and I just never turned down a job after that.
When did you realize that you could coach in the NFL?
Well, I don't know if I ever realized it, but I know at first it was sort of overwhelming to become a head coach. I was fortunate that I had the opportunity to work at the Los Angeles Rams with George Allen, Tommy Prothro, and then Chuck Knox. And after working with those three people as an assistant coach, I think they inspired me to think bigger, think about one day maybe the opportunity would present itself, and I especially identified with Chuck Knox and his type of personality and his sincerity and his intensity. I sort of said, I would like to be like him, and I'd like to be as smart as Tommy Prothro, which I couldn't be, and I'd like to be as intense in preparation as George Allen was, and I tried to put all those things together into one.
I mean, to go from Stanford as an assistant coach for only one season to becoming an assistant coach in the NFL, that was unheard of back then.
Well, I was fortunate. The track coach at Stanford University, the great Peyton Jordan, was a good friend of George Allen's, and he recommended me to George Allen. And I interviewed with George, and they gave me the job.
Because there were no special teams coaches back then, and you were the first one.
I was the first guy, yes.
How did that come about? How did George decide that he needed just a coach for special teams, or did you sell yourself on that?
No, the year before, they'd lost a playoff game because of a kickoff return for a touchdown. So they spent the off season evaluating all the kickoff returns and found out there were certain guys in coverage that never made a tackle the entire year. And if they'd have been evaluating that every week like they do the offense and defense, maybe they would have made the changes or coached them up to make a tackle. So he decided, I need somebody to be, scrutinizing the details of NFL kicking game preparation, and that's when he hired me.
What was George like to work for?
Fun. I enjoyed him. He was very, very detailed in preparation. He had a lot of funny mannerisms, very bright. Was always happier when the defense won the game than when the offense won the game. But as long as you won, he was happy. And then when you lost, like he said, I remember him saying so many times, losing is worse than death because you have to get up the next morning.
How could he enjoy the offense more than the defense with that fearsome foursome?
Well, no, he enjoyed the defense.
Oh, the defense more. I got you.
Excuse me. Yeah.
But you had a pretty good quarterback then. I mean, John.
Roman Gabriel.
Or Roman
Gabriel with him. Oh, Roman Gabriel's NFL Player of the Year. Oh, fine football player. I learned a lot from him. I really did.
He's another guy who should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's tough. There are so many good ones right now that it makes it tough. And but one day maybe he will be given that opportunity because he was a real good player.
And then you went to UCLA, and then you went back to the Rams as the assistant coach.
Right. No, I went back to the Rams as a head coach.
Oh, I mean,
excuse me. Yes. Yeah. No, excuse me. You're going all the way back. Thank you for your preparation. Yes. Yeah.
So
I went to UCLA to work for Tommy Prothro because as a young assistant at Stanford, I had admired the coaching job that Prothro had done at UCLA with what I thought was just very average talent with the exception of a few skilled guys. And he'd win anyway. And I wanted to find out how he did it. And fortunately, I did.
When you went back to the Rams as an assistant coach in '71, was that a big change, or was that pretty much like just going home again?
No, it was a big change for me because I went from being the special teams coach to offensive coordinator, and I really wasn't qualified to do that. But Coach Prothro had never been in the NFL before, so he didn't know I wasn't qualified. I helped to get him fired, but I learned a lot. But I really, as I look back now and see, I didn't have the experience to do a great job for him, and I've always felt a little guilty about that.
What do you mean by experience? You didn't know how to call the plays, or you didn't know how to deal with
No,
the players?
I hadn't run an NFL offense. I hadn't been the boss of an NFL offense before. So I had been in college, but there was a big difference between college and NFL in those days.
And then you became the UCLA head coach in '74, and you took
Right.
over. That program, I mean, it was a storied program for years. Back then, it wasn't the Pac-10; it was the Pac-8 still.
Right. Yeah. And anyway, it was a great opportunity, and the reason I got the job is I'd been there 1 year with Prothro as his offensive coordinator, and then he went to the Rams as head coach, and I went with him. But the exposure to UCLA and the people there gave me the opportunity to go back there and be the head coach. I'm there 2 years. We win the Rose Bowl, and I go to the Eagles as head coach. So, it was a good decision and a good opportunity.
Your wife had to be ready to kill you for all this jumping around.
Almost.
I mean, it's got to be hard on the
She voted not to
family.
go. I know that. She voted not to leave Napa College when I was in JC coaching. She voted not to leave UCLA when I was in college coaching. So anyway, it worked out.
Now, when you got the head coaching job with the Eagles, that team hadn't won in 16, 17 years since Chuck Bednarik was there. Was that tough?
Well, it was very tough initially, but I thought I had a process that would work, and at that time you could sign as many kids as you wanted to. At that time you could stay on the field as long as you wanted to. At that time you could wear pads as long as you have to. You think that a squad needs it, the individual players need it. And if we built our program around hard work and free agents, and we didn't have any draft choices the first 3 years, no first and seconds. So we went from there, and it turned out real well. And I have some lifelong friends that I coached then that are still friends today.
You had an underrated quarterback in Ron Jaworski. How easy did he make it on you coaching him?
He came on strong. It took him a year to get going, just like it did me to get going. And once he got going, he gradually improved. And I brought Sid Gilman in to help me improve everybody, let alone Ron Jaworski, but improve me and my coaching staff. And he really helped us all. And we all got better. We went to a Super Bowl and got beat.
You stole Sid Gilman, though, from the Bears. The Bears had him for that 1 year. And every former Bear player I talked in '77 on that team said that guy was an offensive genius. He knew how to run an offense.
No question. In fact, that he is in the Hall of Fame already, but you see a lot of things that I watch a game on Sunday, the 3 or 4 games that I see on Sunday, you see a lot of Sid Gilman.
What made him such a good coach?
Bright, very, very bright, passion for the game, passion to detail, passion for fundamental teaching, passion for organization, and a strong leader.
Do you think he was the biggest influence on you as a coach?
Well, certainly one of them, I know. Once I got into pro ball as a head coach, he was the biggest.
What did he teach you?
Well, he taught me to open up my thinking. He said I was too concerned about preventing people from scoring and should think more about scoring. And he said I was the most offensive coach he'd ever been around, and he helped me open my thinking up because I was too afraid to lose and not aggressive enough to win, and he influenced me that way, and my whole staff.
When the Eagles finally turned it around and you made that Super Bowl, how did that make you feel?
Well, I was proud of the fact that we did it the hard way, the old-fashioned way, with just hard work. I was proud of the fact that the entire organization in the building, we all won together. For everybody shared in our success, and it was not just me, the head coach or the coordinator, it was the entire organization. And a lot of those people are still friends of mine. In fact, I just had a phone call from one of them a little while ago.
When you beat the Cowboys and made that Super Bowl, they had to be special because they were America's team back then.
Yeah, well, no, I never voted for them.
You weren't a big Cowboy fan?
No, not at all. I get a kick out of them calling the Americans fan. If any team should be the Americans team, should be in Philadelphia. That's where they signed the Constitution. Come on.
Exactly.
But anyway, they are a great organization, and nobody does it much better.
What made you decide to retire after the '82 season?
Well, I turned a passion into an obsession, and I drove myself into a hole emotionally and physically that the only way I could get out of it was to take a break. I hadn't planned to be out 14 years. I had planned to be out 1 year, maybe 2, and then try to get back in. But I got a job broadcasting. I enjoyed it. It paid me twice as much money as I was making as a coach, because in those days they didn't pay coaches very much money. And I enjoyed it, and it kept me close to the game and the people in the game. But I left there because a passion became an obsession, and I couldn't turn it off.
What do you mean by this obsession? The long hours, or just everything
No,
had to
I
be
just
perfect?
couldn't turn it off. And when you start not handling a loss well, it affects you not preparing your team well to play the next game after the loss. And that's a spiral down, and that's what I was doing.
Doug Buffone mentioned that to play football, you got to have like a Neanderthal gene. Do you need a similar gene to coach?
Well, I don't know. Those kind of guys were Neanderthal players. Boy, they're the heart of the game, and don't certainly put myself in that category. But I love to teach. I love I love relationships in coaching. I love the details of the game. I love the numbers, and the only way to do it is be a coach.
You mentioned that the practices, there was no limits on how much you practiced, what you did.
No.
Do you think that today's game is hurt by that?
No question. The only thing is you're all working under the same standards. But now it's a losing team can't work harder to catch up with a winning team that's already winning. That's a big disadvantage, I think.
Yeah, because you don't see the tackling. I mean, you used to have the tackling dummies, the certain drills. Now there's no contact in these practices, or maybe once a week. And these players
sometimes it looked like Dancing with the Stars. But there's more to the game than just contact and scrimmage. But anyway, I just feel it hurts the development of the average to below average player. It hurts the development of a possible free agent. It hurts the development of your whole squad if you weren't good enough in the first place. It boils it down to you just better have better players than the other guy, and then do a good job with the time you're allotted.
It almost looks like arena football nowadays.
No. It's good football, believe me. The game last night was, one team played outstanding and the other team played poorly, and so the Eagles blow them out. But it was a great display of good coaching in football.
This West Coast offense just seems to withstand the test of time. Is there a reason for that?
Well, the West Coast offense is not today what it was when Bill Walsh really installed it and got it going. It's a conglomeration of everybody. Everyone has the volume of offense today is so much greater than it used to be. Everybody includes what somebody else does well, for the most part.
Did you ever have any opportunities to go back to coaching between leaving the Eagles and going to the Rams?
Yeah, I was out 14 years. 13 of the 14 years out, I talked to different teams about going back. They called and inquired if I was interested.
It had to be really tempting. Was there a reason you didn't want to do it?
I was a little afraid of myself, and I didn't want to find myself in the same hole I was in when I left. And so that was it. And broadcasting was fun.
But then what changed to make you decide to go to the Rams?
I got to the Rams, I knew people there, and they'd offered me the job every time it was open, and I didn't take it, and so I knew they were sincere, and I felt at the age that I did go back, if I didn't go back then, it would be too late.
Was there kind of like some kind of thought, you know what, the Rams gave me my first chance back in L.A., and you know what, I might as well go there because they're kind of like my family? Well,
a little bit, yeah. I felt a sincere interest in me for a long period of time. I felt that they would do what they could to help me be successful, even though I'd been out. And I felt that they would back me in every way, and they did.
You had a couple rough seasons with the Rams, and then it all turned around when you made Kurt Warner the starting quarterback. Did you realize?
Well, it gradually turned around within those first 2 years, but not so much on the scoreboard. But the football team kept getting better. The players kept getting better that were working as hard as they were. Then we put it all together the third year when Mike Martz came in and ran the offense for us. And Al Saunders came in and John Masco came in, and they added and made a great contribution to the overall team. But it was a 3-year project, not a 1 year.
Was Coach Martz similar to Sid Gilman?
Oh, yes. He was a young Sid Gilman.
What made him so successful?
Well, he had a philosophy, a belief, teaching skills, very bright, handled pressure well, communicated well with the players as an assistant, and just did a fantastic job.
How did Kurt Warner compare to Ron Jaworski as a quarterback?
Well, probably, the offenses were different, so it's hard to compare. We gave Kurt Warner more opportunities to look good as a quarterback than we gave Ron. More team patterns and less individual routes and these kinds of things. More complex passing game. But they compare, I think, all in the long run, maybe Kurt was just a little more accurate overall in a variety of throws.
It just seemed like you had so many weapons to use when you had that Rams team. You had Warner, you had Marshall Faulk, you had Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt. You were just loaded. It had to be tough to get those guys the ball enough.
Well, when you're a true team, ego doesn't interfere. All they want to do is win. And it takes time to build that kind of atmosphere, that kind of attitude. And my staff and myself, we were fortunate and we were able to do that.
I hear a lot of people say that a coach is only as good as his assistant coaches. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with it. But it's your head coach's job to make sure the assistant coaches are good. It's your head coach's job to make sure that the environment's right. The head coach's job to bring a process of leadership and to a team. The overall organization is the head coach's responsibility, and you delegate, then you lead, and you teach.
When you go to put a staff together, how do you decide who you're going to hire? Do you go to people you work with before? Do you talk to other coaches?
I used other coaches as much as anything that I knew and trusted. I used Bill Walsh a lot. He used me a lot. I used people that had a lot of experience that I know that had been there. I'd watched them coach. I watched some of them coach when I was in television.
Then you went to the Chiefs following your retirement after the Super Bowl. With that Chiefs team, did you use the same philosophy?
Yes. Not quite as intense. I did start out as tough. I started out the Rams. But it was a great experience, a great 5 years, and I'm glad I did it. My third-year team was a great team. The third, fourth, and fifth year were all good teams. We didn't win as many games as we should have the fourth year. We won 10 games the fifth year and didn't go to the playoffs.
Similar to Lovie Smith here with the Bears a couple of years ago. I think it's tough being a coach, but again, you did something with 3 organizations. You took organizations that were down, built them up, took them to Super Bowls or to the playoffs here, and you did your job.
Well, there's a difference between building a team and coaching a team. A lot of people are fortunate to inherit a team that's already got personnel and all the positions required to really be successful. Another team you take over, they were losing because they didn't have them, and it's your job to locate them, build them, and coach them. And that's a little tougher. That doesn't mean a guy should be punished for taking over a team that had more players on it for one reason or another. They didn't win, but it's a little tougher when you have to build it.
Who was the best player you ever coached?
Probably Marshall Faulk and Kurt Warner.
What made them so good? Was it just the talent, or they just had the mentality?
A combination of everything. When you're a Hall of Fame player, it's just a combination of everything. And they're Hall of Fame players. Marshall's already in there, and Kurt will be next.
And what about you? Do you think you're going in sometime?
I've been nominated. I'm always nominated. That doesn't mean I'm going to go in. I did what I was supposed to do as a football coach, the best I could do. And if that moves me into the category of a Hall of Fame, I'll accept it. But I think there are other guys like, Chuck Knox. I think Don Coryell, those kind of guys, Jimmy Johnson, Dan Reeves. Hey, they probably did a better job than I did, but I'm not in charge of evaluating that. I hope I get in. It would be great, but I don't. Not necessarily one of these guys walking around think I deserve it.
Another guy is Tom Flores. I don't understand that either. Why he's not in?
Well, one reason is just every team prior to him taking over was a winning team. They've been winning 70% of their games all the way before John Madden ever took over. So all I had to do is keep them doing it and be lucky enough to win a playoff game at a critical time and go. And they did a great job. He beat my ass. And I hope he gets in. But, I think people that vote recognize those kind of things.
Who do you think the best player you ever saw play was?
Oh, I think of Reggie White, and then Lawrence Taylor. The two of those is a flip a coin.
If there's one thing you could change about your career, what would you change?
I would have listened when I was a head coach at the Eagles and toned down my temperament, my intensity, and my emotions so I wouldn't have had to walk away from a very, very good job.
But it has to be tough because those Eagle fans are probably the most intense fans there are in football.
Well, they're intense, but they're really good, too.